Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Amity University. Amity is a research and innovation-driven university. Today, we have 12 Amity universities in India with 16 global campuses, 28 schools and preschools, all following the ideals, values, and sanskars laid down by none other than our founder president, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, sir, who believes that every Amitian is an asset to the society and to the nation and also to the expanding global village as we believe in what we call as Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Welcome everyone to the 7th webinar in the series of the webinars on Transgender Persons Act of 2019 and the rules 2020. So today's topic is very important. The topic under fire today is the National Council for Transgender Persons. Do you think it's underrepresented or that's insufficient? There's much to talk about it, but I would like to begin with the core of what we call as self-expression, dignity, the glorious form of individuality, and that is me, myself, you, yourself, she, herself, he, himself. That means me. I am what I am, so accept me, what I am. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin this beautiful webinar on this topic, let's invoke the goddess of learning and be guided with the light in our lives. I'll request Vijay to share the Saraswati Vandana video.
Om Bhurvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. He Sharide Ma, He Sharide Ma, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ. हे शारदे माँ, हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ. तो श्वेत वर्णी कमल पे विराजे, हाथों में वीणा मुकुट सर पे साजे. तो श्वेत वर्णी कमल पे विराजे, हाथों में वीणा मुकुट सर पे साजे. मन से हमारे मिटा दे अंधेरे, हमको जालों का संसार दे माँ. हे शारदे माँ, हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ. अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ. अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ.
With that, let us all be dissolved in the light of the divine. May goddess of learning bless us all with the light in our lives. May our causal, subtle and physical bodies be soaked in divinity. Thank you so much, Vijay. Ladies and gentlemen, Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee invites you all to the 7th webinar in the series of the webinars on Transgender Persons Act 2019 and the accompanying rules 2020. Before we proceed on to the webinar, there is an information for everybody that at Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee now we have a totally dedicated cell to cater to the rights and the challenges and the issues faced by the transgender persons. So we call this cell as Transgender Persons and Disability Rights Cell, which we have constituted, and with the faith and the hope that the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment has bestowed upon us. And we are doing this series of webinars also with the support of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. And we have 4 more webinars to go. So much will be discussed about the National Council for the Transgenders, whether underrepresented or insufficient, but to my mind, that this council was built exclusively for the transgender persons give us a lot of hope. And as I initially spoke about self-dignity, let's look for the rainbow in every crowd, because equality and liberty and freedom can be fulfilled when each one of us realize that the rights of the transgender people are also same as our rights, and our rights are also same as their rights. So without any further ado, I will now request Dr. Lekha Rani Singh, who is the moderator of today's webinar series, to take over. Over to you, Dr. Lekha Rani Singh.
A very good afternoon to all the people in the panel. I, Dr. Lekha Rani Singh, on behalf of Amity Law School, Noida, I welcome you all. And our first speaker for today is Dr. Shruti Bisht ma'am. She is practicing lawyer in Supreme Court, specializing in corporate laws, cyber laws, media laws, intellectual property law, and arbitration, insolvency, human rights, and criminal litigation. She is author of Legal Columnist, media personality, and a public speaker. She has done her LLM in corporate laws and IPR. Her expert opinion has been considered by Parliament while drafting of Information Technology Rules 2021. She has also assisted as a legal expert in Personal Data Protection Bill and Industrial Relations Code 2020. She is president and founder of International Economic Forum of Commerce and Industry. I would request Dr. Shruti Bisht ma'am to please address the gathering.
Thank you, Amity, for the invitation and introduction. It's really glad to be joining the webinar on the very major and important issue of National Council for Transgender Person under representation or insufficient. To begin with, the framers of Indian Constitution, while formulating it, envisaged that future India would nurture such a society where there would be no discrimination on the basis of the caste, religion, color, gender, and reason. They envisaged the future of India as a country where there are no caste, religion, gender, etc. inequalities. To say that Indian Constitution claims to provide equal opportunity and rights to every citizen. But in context of transgender, this does not seem to be the reality. Now, transgender has been an integral part of Indian history. Transgenders have been mentioned in Indian mythologies, myths, in Ramayana and in Mahabharata. Now, who doesn't know the story of Shakuni in Mahabharata? It is also a well-known fact that Arjun had lost his masculinity for some time due to a curse of a woman. The mention of transgender has occurred frequently in medieval history. But in the modern India, we do not see any reference of transgender. The grossest inequality, discrimination that started happening was in the modern society that was supposed to be more open-minded to the gender issues. But contrary to this, now we see in the recent past decade that if a transgender baby is born in a family, then his family members could not keep him or her in the house, even if they wanted to do so. After all, what is the fault of the baby for being born as a transgender? But due to such social unacceptability, the transgender baby had to abandon his parents' home. Since they were not provided with the means of education, employment, they were forced to live their lives by doing the jobs of begging, dancing, or work in some, human trafficking zones. So that was the most unfortunate fact. However, in the recent few years, because the condition of the transgender became so pathetic and so menial that the Supreme Court took a cognizance into this. Some judgments relating to the transgender really brought reforms in our country. In the year 2014, the Honorable Supreme Court of India has delivered a judgment titled as the National Legal Authority versus Union of India, and observed that a transgender is different and distinct from a male and a female, and they be referred as a third gender. So a recognition of third gender was accepted, that okay, there is a third gender and it is not important for a human being it to be either a woman or a man. A transgender can exist. So that's an important milestone. And afterwards, certain more, suggestions were given by the Supreme Court that there should be some National Council for Transgender, there should be some laws and acts that protect the right of the transgender. So on 21st August 2020, another milestone was achieved by the central government with the constitution and establishment of the National Council for the Transgender, pursuant to the only legislation governing the law of the land for transgender person passed last year. Now coming on to the National Council for Transgender. In exercise of the powers conferred under the Section 16 of the Transgender Person Protection of Right Act 2019, the central government has constituted a National Council for Transgender Person via the notification in 21st August 2020. The Union Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment will be the chairperson ex officio, and the Union Minister of State for Social Justice and Empowerment will be the vice chairman ex officio. Now, coming on to the functionalities of the National Council, the main functionalities of the National Council would be to advise the central government on the formulation of the policies, programs, legislation, projects with respect to the transgender person, to monitor and evaluate the impact of the policies and the program designed for achieving equality and full participation of transgender person, to review and coordinate the activities of all the departments of the government and other government and the NGOs which are dealing with the matters relating to the transgender, to address the grievances of transgender person, to perform such other functions may be prescribed by the central government. The other members of the council include representatives of various ministries and departments, 5 representatives of transgender community, representatives of NHRCs and NCWs, representatives of the state governments and the UTs, the experts representing the NGOs. A member of National Council other than the ex officio member shall hold an office for a term of 3 years from the date of his nomination. So these are the main functionings of the National Council. Now, moving on to what welfare schemes or investment the government has made, the central government, to bring into some reforms relating to the transgender. So recently, in the last 3 years, the umbrella scheme known as SMILE was launched in the year 2022, and 365 crore has been allocated for the next 5 years for the project of SMILE. This is by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment itself. For a very long time, the transgender community in our country has lived at the fringes of society. It was only after the landmark rulings of the Supreme Court in year 2014, popularly known as the NALSA judgment, that transgender persons were legally recognized as transgender. The government of India, over the course of a year, has made consistent and significant efforts in designing and working towards a trans-inclusive society, safeguarding the fundamental rights to live life with dignity, Article 21 of the Constitution. This, step is basically to preserve this fundamental right itself. Now, if we come on to the definition, the Transgender Persons Protection of the Right Act 2019 defines transgender as a person whose gender does not match with the gender assigned to the person at the birth. That may include a trans man or a trans woman, whether or not such person has undergone gender reassignment surgery, hormone therapies, laser therapies, or any such therapy. Person with variation, gender queer, and persons having such socio-cultural identities as the kinners, or the in local terms we call them. So the transgender population has never been enumerated before the year 2011. The Registrar General of India, during the enumeration of the census 2011, for the first time provided 3 codes: male, female, and others. So that was a recognition that transgenders are also human beings, and they should also have a social representation of being represented in the census of this country. Although the process had its own limitation, the census 2011 recorded 4,87,803 individuals who identified themselves as being a gender other than the male or a female. Now, coming on to what measures we are taking for the protection and the welfare of the transgender persons in India. The transgender persons have faced several issues: discriminations like excluding from the families. The moment a child is born, the child is taken away from the family and given to some community. What we see them begging in the streets, singing in the streets and the trains. I mean, the transgender was not given the legal right to live with their parents only because they are not a man or a woman. Then they did not have the right to livelihood. They did not have the right to live in a good shelter. They were thrown in the slums. They were not given adequate shelters, welfare, and employment. That is the most inhuman, abusive crime committed by a human being on another human being only because they are transgender. Even in our mythology, the transgender had a recognition. Now, what specific measures we are taking to mitigate the stigma and discriminations and the abuse against these marginalized sections and bring them into the mainstream of the society? It will lead to a greater inclusiveness and will make transgender persons more productive and protected by the members of the society. Now, this bill has following provisions. The first is non-discrimination against a transgender person in educational institutions, employment, healthcare services, etc. Recognitions of identity of transgender and confer upon them the right to self-service and gender identity. Provisions of the right of residence with the parents and the immediate family members. Provisions for the formulations of welfare schemes and the programs of education, social security and health of transgender persons. Provisions for the National Council for the Transgender Persons to advise, monitor, and evaluate measures for the protections of their rights. Now, the Act is designated to make all the stakeholders responsible and accountable for upholding the principles underlying the same. Now, it also brings greater accountability on the part of the central government and the state government, union territory administrations for issues concerning the transgender. Now, coming up to the Transgender Protection of Rights Rule 2020. The Transgender Persons Protection Right 2020 were formulated and published in the Gazette in September 29 of 2020. The rules seek to recognize the identify of transgenders and prohibit discriminations in the field of education, employment, healthcare, holding or disposing of the property, holding public or private offices, access and to use of public service and benefits. Now, in exercise of the powers conferred under Section 16. Now, coming up to, what major empowerment schemes we are providing, as we have discussed on to, what rules, what kind of, protection this National Council provides, what are the differences that they are facing. Now, how can we remove the gender inequality? Because when we speak of the underrepresentation of transgender, certainly there is a gross underrepresentation. In schools, you don't see the transgender coming up into the good schools, or you don't see them much into the colleges. Even in the colleges, 99.9% are either men or a women, but no transgenders. Even if in the schools, if you see somebody is a transgender, people, they start, abusing them, they start bullying them, they start mistreating them. So it discourages those people to come up and attain the formal education. So the biggest underrepresentation that we see of the transgenders is basically in the educational system. So the Indian educational system and successive government policies have made steady progress towards bridging gender and the social category gaps in all levels of school educations. Now, several other measures are being taken to focus on the social economically disadvantaged groups that have been historically underrepresentation in education. So there are certain schemes that are actually going to empower such people. Apart from it, there are empowerment schemes through skill development, training, and livelihood skills. Because what we see is, if you don't go through a formal education, then how you are going to survive, how you are going to exist. So there you need some entrepreneurship skills, some skills to be inculcated, like tailors, or some skills like working in the mechanic shops, or any other handloom things, or working into the tribal handlooms, welfare, etc. things. So there are so many such skill development programs that are supported by the ministries of the skill development and entrepreneurship, and has been implementing the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, Jan Shikshakan Sansthan scheme, a national apprenticeship promotion scheme for providing the short-term skill development trainings, and the craftsmanship for scheme for a long term. So the youth belonging to all sections of society, including the transgenders, will have the advantage to avail this, initiative, avail this benefit, and survive through such a crucial and such a tough stages of life. So this is, extremely important, not just for our country, or not just for the government, the parliament, or the lawmaking or implementing authorities, but for the common people also, to bring up with a sense of gender equality, that when you see a transgender, you don't start humiliating them or bullying them, because we can bring educational reform, we can bring them to the skill development centers, but if they discriminated, abused, or bullied there, then how do we remove the differences and the inequalities? So this is important for the people itself to understand. Then only the schemes can be implemented. Other major initiatives that have been taken is in the year 2016, the Ministry of Railway introduced the third gender column in its reservation form and included transgender as an option in the railway ticket form itself. So previously the column had only male and female. Apart from it, the Ministry of Rural Development implements a National Social Assistance Program, a centrally sponsored scheme that provides financial assistance to the elderly women, widows, and persons from disabilities. Under this scheme, 3,384 transgenders are being provided monthly pension. So that's a huge, initiative of providing pensions to the transgender through this scheme. Now, in April 2020, the Ministry of Personnel asked all the central ministries and departments to modify relevant examination rules and application forms to include the transgender as a separate category for all central government jobs. So these are certain, initiative that the government is taking. And now coming up onto some exceptionally high trans women or transgender people who have recently been awarded the Padam Shri Award, a renowned Bharatanatyam dancer, Nartaki Natarajan. She comes from a transgender community, and in the year 2019, she has been awarded a Padam Shri Award. That's one of the highest, civilian awards in this country, and that's a honor for the transgender, and that's a very big step by the government that has been taken to promote and give equal rights to the transgender people. Apart from it, Dr. Aksa Sheikh has also been, a trans woman, and she has also specialized in MBBS and MDs, and she has contributed much to the battle against the COVID pandemic. And she now heads a COVID-19 vaccination center. There are various such trans men and women who are, the executive committee members on the National Council of Transgender. So what we see is with the legal recognition, policy support, and transgender community being identified under the SDGs, the movement for inclusion, acceptance of the transgender person has received a strong backing in India. Further, it is a responsibility of each individual at all micro and the macro level to create a gender inclusiveness in environment around them at their households, workplace, and other institutions. With more awareness, empathy, and welcoming attitude, we can pave the way for a country in rainbow colors, where we respect, support, and celebrate the engagements, expressions, well-being of all members of the LGBT community and the transgender. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shruti ma'am, for sharing your words of wisdom. And I would like to inform the audience that ma'am has given a really good insight about how discrimination is done with the transgenders and how they are working for their rights. And she has also informed that government has also told all the stakeholders that they should take their responsibility. And for the transgender protection rights 2020, there are certain rules which are there so that they can identify the rights and they can learn certain skill developments things so that they can have working for themselves, they can find out a place for themselves. Ma'am has also shared major empowerment schemes which are started by government to empower the transgenders. And she also informed us about certain awards and honors which are received by transgenders, including one which was received by one of the dancer. She was awarded with Padma Shri. With this, I would also like the audience to know that Dr. Shruti Bisht ma'am was conferred Virangana Samman for her good work in the area of law and economics. So we are highly thankful to you, ma'am, for joining our session and enlightening the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bhanu Pratap sir, are you there? Bhanu sir?
He will join a little late.
Okay, so I would like to introduce our next speaker for today, Dr. Vidyotma Jha. Ma'am is a Supreme Court lawyer. and she is an author and also a public speaker, and she has done lots of work related to the field of law. So I would request now Dr. Vidyotma Jha to please address the gathering.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm really delighted for being a part of this drive that we are trying to help a community, a section of our society which has not been recognized, or at least it not we can say that it has not been recognized the way it should have been till now. So I would like to start from the topic right away, like, because a lot of discussion has been going on from time immemorial about the transgender people, but they never got that kind of respect. And now also the discussion is continuing, and the media hype with respect to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender persons has always been there. The most important question that has surfaced before the world community today is whether the rights of the gay or lesbians are included under our basic human rights. These inquiries have taken center stage even at the United Nations. Besides, the United Nations has been working with member states in order to disacknowledge bigotry and interdiction, primarily based on homophobia and transphobia. There has been a remarkable shift in the thought process and legal aspect over the past 20 years in various countries across the globe. In fact, approximately over 30 countries have legalized homosexuality. Number of mass movements, resistance, continuous efforts from the United Nations, various NGOs internationally, and representatives of member states to guarantee the human rights of LGBT persons has gained momentum like never before. Also, there has been efforts being made towards the global inclusion of LGBT rights in our basic human rights. Still, the trajectory of progress is lopsided and dented. There is no headway with respect to the protection of the people of this community at places of work. The discrimination towards LGBTQ is primarily based on sexual orientation or gender identity. If at all any kind of protection exists, they are either inadequate or unenforced. Thus, there is a need for stronger methods and laws to provide the LGBTQ a level playing field. The word transgender itself is a blanket term which refers to people who have different gender identity from the sex assigned to us since birth. The term itself says that rather it started coming into use in the 20th century, though the people who come under this category have always existed in every culture throughout the history. It is only now that we have started discussing about the trans people and their position in our society. The trans community is a diverse community. Some of them are identified as trans men or trans women, whereas few describe them as non-binary, gender queer, gender non-conforming, agender, bigender, or many other identities which is difficult to pronounce at once. India is changing, and we may call it as New India. This is because the society and the thought process in the given society have changed by leaps and bounds. As a result of the changes that have occurred in the social fabric, the entire pattern of belief has changed, and so has the judiciary. The Supreme Court of India in September 2018 gave a landmark judgment with respect to the LGBTQA community in India. It was a historic moment which changed the thought process of the society. The judgment struck down Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code and thereby approving sexual relations between adult people of the same sex, which was unlawful until then. The government laid emphasis on the significance of including people from various groups and identities. In fact, the present government has pressed on the importance of including many groups and identities of India which remained on the edge under the previous regimes. The government has acknowledged the changes that the society is going through and that nobody should be isolated. Due to the changes and growing acceptance in society, the transgenders acquired more tolerance and recognition in past few years and also became a part of government. In 2014, the transgenders began to identify themselves as third gender. And on 6 September 2018, with the allusion of Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, the group came to be legally accepted. The law does not prescribe to make symbolic same-sex marriage. Since 2019, the transgender women have also got the right to record their marriages according to the Hindu Marriage Act by way of the decision of the Madras High Court. the government upheld the ruling of the apex court on the decriminalization of homosexuality. It is thus believed that transgender community may get to see greater inclusion, tolerance, and normality. It is further believed that since it is the rule of law, the people must honor the variegated community and group that exists in the society, and those who do not concede, they still are required to do so. The transgender have been stigmatized in the society since the time immemorial. Our government and judiciary have tried to diminish the stigma. The movies have a greater and deeper role in changing the perspectives of society, be it at any aspect, including the lives of transgenders that are part of our system. Cinema acts as a right medium in changing the outlook of the masses. Initially, the transgenders were seen in comic or villainous role, but now the movies have become more realistic and are trying to portray the true agonies of transgenders. All this could happen due to the landmark judgment passed by the Supreme Court for Section 377. Now the society has in a way, come of age and has therefore become way more aware than it was earlier. The young people of India have played an indispensable role in removing this slur. The Supreme Court has established the foundation for respect for this community. So now the new India, which comprises mostly of young population, is trying to accept and embrace the changes. Recently, the Kerala High Court, in a matter relating to the live-in relationship of two girls, directed them to undergo counseling, against which the Supreme Court issued notice and granted stay. This order has triggered a new debate on the rights of the LGBT community in India. The LGBT community here has always faced a very hostile behavior from society. Whenever a family comes to know that their son or daughter is lesbian or gay or transgender, they start feeling ashamed of him or her. The moment physical changes start being visible, the families of such children start saving such a child from the eyes of the society. They stop sending him or her to play with other children of his or her age in school or college. It becomes quite impossible for such a child to study due to bullying by other children. The hostility does not end here. Even after all such adversaries, if such a child succeeds in getting some education, it is again very difficult for him or her to get a job in any private or government sector. There are no seats reserved for them in any industry or service. As a result, the majority of transgenders and other people of the LGBT community are being compelled to survive on begging or prostitution. In ancient times, the LGBT community was well recognized. And one example of this is Shikhandi. In Mahabharata, Arjuna could succeed in killing Bhishma Pitama only by taking Shikhandi's help. In the pictures depicted in Khajuraho or Ajanta Ellora, one can find lesbians and gays. Even in the Mughal period, there are several examples of rulers having transgenders in their inner circle. These examples show that during those periods, LGBTs were not being seen as people of shame. It was only during the British period in 1862 when Section 377 was inserted in the Indian Penal Code, which criminalized same-sex relationship even with consent. The LGBT community had to fight a long battle to regain their rights, which were given to them by Delhi High Court in 2009 in the case of Nas Foundation. And the same was affirmed by the Supreme Court in 2018 in the case of Navtej Singh Johar, in which a 5-judge constitution bench unanimously struck down Section 377 of Indian Penal Code by declaring it to be violative of Articles 14, 15, and 21 of the Constitution. The result of these judgments is that now a same-sex relationship or a live-in relationship of two same-sex persons is legal in India. In another judgment of Nalsa in 2014, the Supreme Court acknowledged the rights of the transgenders as a third gender and the non-binary identities and directed the government to treat them as minorities and provide them reservation in jobs, education, and other amenities. Thereafter, in all educational services and other sectors and in application forms, there is a third column of others after male and female. Recently, the Supreme Court Collegium recommended Saurabh Kirpal, senior advocate, to be elevated as a judge in the Delhi High Court, which was not accepted by the central government on the ground that he openly admitted being gay and a strong supporter of LGBT rights. This objection of the central government was rejected by the Supreme Court Collegium, and his name was again recommended for elevation on the ground that sexual orientation of a person cannot be a reason for rejection. Another positive views from the judiciary, cinema, media, entertainment industry, NGOs, intellectuals, and reputed persons, the LGBT community has now started demanding recognition of same-sex marriage and the right arising out of such marriage. Till 2017, a total of 29 countries have legally recognized same-sex marriage. In 2000, the Netherlands became the first country to recognize same-sex marriage through a parliamentary legislation. This was followed by Belgium in 2003, Canada and Spain in 2005, South Africa in 2006, Norway in 2008, Sweden in 2009, Iceland, Portugal, Argentina in 2010, Denmark in 2012, Uruguay, New Zealand, France, Brazil, England, and Wales in 2013, Scotland in Luxembourg in 2014, Finland, Ireland, Greenland, and USA in 2015, Colombia in 2016, and Germany, Malta, and Australia in 2017. Even after all these developments across the world, the battle of LGBT community for the right to marry goes on in India. We should not forget that a majority of Indians are still conservative with regard to family, society, caste, community, and religion. The community bonding of Indians is much stronger than communities in most other countries. A majority of Indians have faith in their religious preachings, whether they are Hindus or Muslims. Unlike European or Western countries, in India, and especially in Hindus, marriage is considered a sacrosanct union of two persons. It is not only a union of two persons, but also union of two families. The families of both the bride and groom celebrate the occasion of marriage as a festival in their family. Therefore, marriages cannot be said to be a private affair, as in the case of live-in relationship, and is a big public and social affair. No doubt, sex is one of the most important part of a marriage. But traditionally, the main purpose of marriage is progeny. That is, to give birth to a new generation who could take the family legacy forward, which is not possible in same-sex marriages. The same-sex couples cannot produce biological children who can keep alive the traditional concept of taking the name of their family after them. Apart from marriage, the other big hurdle in granting status of marriage to same-sex couples will come with while defining laws of adoption, guardianship, and succession for same-sex couples. People of India cannot trust to hand over a girl child in adoption to a gay couple, even if lawmakers of India or the judiciary give the right to marry, right of succession, right of adoption, or right of guardianship to the people of the LGBT community. The society will always be in a conflicting state and find it very difficult to recognize such rights even after the constitutional sanctions. The developing nations like India have a number of issues to deal with, along with the mobilization of third sex and the sexual character as legislative issues, further arousing the predominant issues such as citizenship, human rights, social personality, and convention. Globalization is primarily the transfer of ideologies past the economic borders and supranational interchange along with international exchanges. In the case of issues with respect to sexuality, the globalization results in a sort of repressive attitude towards the same. The effect of globalization on third gender with respect to acceptance of what contradicts the ideologies bound by the traditional rules of nature comes from the deep-rooted cultural framework of a country. Nevertheless, what efforts the country takes having an extremely positive outlook towards the social acceptance of what was once contemplated as an interdiction seems formidable. But the society needs to untie itself from the existing boundaries and think from the perspective of the ideals that a constitution beholds. The transgender community, like any other community, must be treated fairly and on equal footing in every sphere, be it political or economic aspects, as the source of the rights comes directly from the constitution and not from the wounded ideologies of the society, which is in contradiction with the legal and political framework of the country. We should not forget that we live in a country where women had been given equal rights in the properties of their parents by Hindu Succession Act in 1955. But even today, after a lapse of more than 70 years, parents do not give their properties to their daughters. Parents often write a will to bequeath their properties to their sons so that after their death, their daughters cannot claim any right in their properties against their brothers. And where parents die intestate, the brothers ignore objections from their sisters and divide all the properties among themselves. If any of the sisters claims any right in ancestral property, their brothers boycott them socially or they are ostracized. In fact, it can be said that the women have suffered in the past and they continue to suffer as far as their rights are concerned, especially with respect to property. By any means, they are denied their rights. But on the other hand, if we closely analyze, we find a majority of people in United States have become more tolerant towards the transgender people. They want their country to extend more support and protection to transgender people. They have disagreed that the transgender people are violating their culture in any way, and that they are not perturbed from exposing their children to them. They further argue that the society in US has gone too far and allows its people to dress and live as one, even though they were born another. According to an LGBTQ advocacy group in March 2021, the state legislators in United States have come forth and filed 82 bills which might impact the rights of the transgender people. Transgender people also face challenges. The challenges that they face is actually the result of the culture we live in, the country, the culture, the kind of belief system we have. The trans people have become visible to a great extent in both popular culture and in daily life, but they still face challenges like discrimination, stigma, and systemic inequality. Despite the decision passed by US Supreme Court, the trans people lack legal protection and face discrimination in the workplace. There is still no comprehensive federal non-discrimination law, which would include the gender identity. This clearly shows the trans people still lack legal recourse. The other problems of trans people includes that they live in elevated rates of poverty, and it gets higher if they are of color. The data reveals that around 29% of trans adults live in dire poverty, followed by 39% of Black trans adults, which gets hiked at 48% if they are Latinx trans adults, and up to 35% of Alaska Native, Asian Native, and Americans, and Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander trans adults. Besides this, the trans people still face a significant level of stigma for over a century, as they have been characterized as mentally ill, socially digressive, and sexually accusative. They are often ridiculed by a section of people in society who do not understand them and rather bully them, harass them, and commit serious violence against them. Due to all these issues and stigma, they are unable to access necessary services for their survival, like housing. There are only 30% women's shelter that are willing to house trans women. With the recent progress in legal system, approximately 27% of trans people have been fired, not hired, and denied promotion due to their identity. The trans people many times have refrained from exercising their rights, such as basic right to vote, as they fear the discrimination at polls. Not only this, the trans people also experience intimate partner violence, which is up to 54% as per the data, while 47% are sexually assaulted and 1 in 10 are physically assaulted. According to the reports of the HRC Foundation analysis, it is found that 22% of trans people and 32% of trans people of color do not have health insurance coverage. To add to this, 29% of trans adults, that is more than a quarter, have been refused healthcare by the doctors because of their gender identity. This data itself reveals the situation of healthcare system that fails to meet the needs of the trans community. The trans community also lacks the accurate identity documents, due to which they are unable to access the emergency housing or any other public services. Without proper identification, everything becomes difficult, like traveling, registering for schools, or accessing many services that are considered essential to function in society. At many places, there is a requirement for the evidence of medical transition, which could be exorbitant and is not something all people would go for. Also, it might be unaffordable for some. So the social organizations, NGOs, media, and the judiciary are all working to remove the differences, discriminations, disparities, stigma, and harassment that the trans people as a marginalized community go through in their lives. They have tried to set a progressive pattern where people could think, understand, acknowledge the coexistence of the trans community, and it is this approach that has made a critical difference. Also, the Human Rights Campaign is committed to support and advocate the causes and issues of trans community. Still, a large proportion of discrimination and inequity persists in society, which is yet to be addressed. In these cases, the parliament is under the burden of ratifying a potent anti-discrimination law to protect minorities like the transgender community. The jurisprudence has progressed over the years, but it alone cannot bear the load of protecting the citizens. Hence, despite the legislations, people need to develop acceptance for the trans community, because there is not only the need for laws, but also sensitivity to the conditions of minorities in an egalitarian democracy. And much still needs to be done in addition to the laws that have been brought in for their welfare. It is still a distant dream that Indian society will ever accept same-sex marriages, regardless of the legal status granted to them. And I conclude with this. Thank you so much for being patient and hearing me.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for sharing your views on LGBT and transgender rights. And I would like to inform the audience that ma'am was also given Virangana Samman by Legal Aid Society of our department for her good work. And ma'am, you have very nicely highlighted that what are the efforts which are made for safeguarding the rights of LGBT. You also spoke about the stronger methods and laws that are required, and you emphasized upon that, apart from giving examples from the past and from Mahabharata, that how survival is difficult for people in this era, and it was not difficult at that time. You also stated certain important judgments, which are very important for the audience to know. Plus, you also spoke about the same-sex marriages, and around 29 countries you informed the audience that it has been legalized, but the battle is still on in India. And thank you for telling the audience that the transgender community should be treated equally, and it's an important aspect of the society, and they should be treated equally. So I hope everybody will imbibe what you have said. Thank you very much for enlightening the audience. Thank you very much, ma'am. I think Bhanu sir, you have joined. Bhanu Pratap sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Bhanu Pratap sir to address the audience. Before that, I would like to introduce sir. Bhanu Pratap Singh sir is an advocate in Supreme Court of India, and he was previously associated with senior advocate Shri M.N. Krishnamani, who was the former president of Supreme Court Bar Association. And we are also thankful to you, sir, for your good work that you are doing in a very sensitive place like Jammu. So I welcome you on behalf of Amity Law School, Noida, and I would request you to please address the gathering. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very warm good evening to all of you, all the august speakers, coordinators, and the management of Amity International Law School. You guys are doing, first of all, I must congratulate that transgenders have always been as in this topic and equally in our society. They are the marginalized, I would say, the people who are being not treated equally. Before me, Vidyotama ma'am was speaking. She has summed up each and everything. I was thinking, what would I speak now? So I thought I would share my practical experiences. Transgender, I'm sure all of us are very much aware about it. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible but not visible. Bhanu sir? Yeah, now visible also and audible also. Yes, sir.
I apologize for some technical error.
Okay.
Transgender to me are persons who, when at the time they are born, they are not accordingly. For example, I would say in the practical sense, we see a boy or a girl is born, but to their choices when the child grows up, that the child does not recognize with the sex in which he or she was born. So as per Article 21 of Indian Constitution, we all have rights. We have right to live with dignity. We have our own choices. In the landmark judgment, which was referred by Dr. Vidyotama ji also, Nalsa versus Union of India in the year 2014, clearly the Honorable Supreme Court of India has said that there is a right of self-identification with the people belonging to transgenders community or LGBT or queers. Every one of us, including us, we have rights. We can identify, we can self-identify each one of us what we are. So they were given right as per the judgment of Supreme Court of India. But still, when we look at the existing scenario, things are not as were like to be. In the year 2019, the passing of Transgender Protection Act, it's another landmark milestone, I would say, in the journey of recognizing the transgenders and giving them their rights. In 2019, clearly an act was formulated. Act had the even penalty provision. Act had a provision wherein the deputy commissioner or the district magistrate would be authorized to issue certificate of identification. They would identify. The prime object of this act was to give statutory recognition to the rights of the transgender community. In this, our today's topic is the National Council for Transgender People. It is underrepresented. Point is, first of all, we must accept the fact that it took long time. It took years and years to recognize them. 1872, when the IPC in the IPC section 377 was added by the Britishers. Since then till 2009, in the intervening period, there was nothing much. There was no much development. We must all admit that this community was marginalized, and we as a society failed to give them their rights. We must acknowledge this. In the year 2009, starting with Naz Foundation, then Navteej Singh Johar case, then Nalsa, and then 2009, 2019, when a statute was passed, when a council was made, a statutory council was made with the object to formulate policies, to suggest programs, projects, all things which are required to be done for the welfare of the transgender persons. This was the whole object of National Commission for Transgender Persons. But here again, every time, whenever we see when some new things come into force, there are certain lacunas, and there is always a scope for upgrading it. There is scope for keeping it up. So here, what to me personally, out of my experience, I would say in Jammu, while I was working during the days of COVID-19. COVID was a period when whole of India, and I would say whole of the world, was shut down. It was completely off everywhere. There was no movement of the transport, and shops and every business establishment was closed. The transgender people at that time, I would say, were faced the brunt. At that time, they were the, I would say, worst hit persons, because rest all of us, me, madam, you, or all our listeners have got stable source of incomes. We have stable jobs. We could work from home. The new normal was work from home. So what about the works of transgenders? Could they work from home? Could they work from their virtual? Could they work in virtual mode? The answer is no, negative. So they were the worst hit. Their livelihood was hurt. They were further indulged. They were further put into the hardships. They were further, this situation aggravated their hardships, and it could nowhere help them. In the year 2020, if I'm not wrong, the first council was formulated, was made. You see, in the intervening period, we have a period like 3 years now. 3 saal mein se bhi there was COVID in between. So there is lot of things to be done for the transgender community. Here, first of all, I would say there is a dire need to increase the number of intersex activists to be the member of this council, because we have made it is a welcome step that that the chairman of this council would be the union minister for from the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. But again, we have to see the democratic aspect also. We have to see that more and more number of people from transgender community, be it from LGBT or queers or lesbians, they must be brought into this council. They must be given the membership of this council, so that they are the ones best to comment upon or to make policies for themselves. I may not be the best judge in their case. They this is very practical thing I'm saying. I may be excused if I say something wrong also, because what do you think, I would be able to draft a better policy for them? I would say no. They must be involved. They must be given due importance. They must be given recognition and place in this council. Already, I admit the number is given, but I request that the number must be increased. This is my suggestion, that the number of intersex activists, the transgenders, that must be increased, and more of them should be involved. Some as full-time members, sometime as part-time members, sometimes some persons maybe as guests, as visitors, so that this must be a vibrant and a living concept, and it must not be left only to the books and the files. So this must be a living concept. Then again, another thing which I would say is reservation. There must be reservation for transgenders, because I would say the basic thing is to get into the employment, to get into the education sector. Whenever we see, for example, out of in your area also, there must be a problem. You see someone from transgender community comes and seeks to get accommodation for them on rent. I don't think the communities or the other persons in that society would be willing, or they would be welcoming to them to give them the accommodation. I guess the answer is we know, all of us, we know that they will not be welcomed. So similarly, it is about the colleges they are joining, or the schools, or everywhere where they go. Therefore, there must be reservation for them. There must be reservations, special privileges for them, so that in order to bring them at par with us, they are no lesser than us. They don't need sympathy from us. They need their due share. We are not going to be, हमें कोई उन पे एहसान नहीं करना है, हम उन्हें कोई दान नहीं दे रहे हैं. This is their due share. As per the Constitution of India, they are entitled to it. This is not they are, they are they may not be looked down upon. They are equal to us. We have judges from them. We have teachers of them. We have an MLA belonging to their community. Are they less to us? No, they are equal. जो सब हम कर सकते हैं वो सब भी कर सकते हैं. So again, public awareness, and more I would appreciate Amity Law School, their legal aid committee, which time and again brings such topics in the discussion area. In J&K, I would say, I belong to Punch district. I am practicing here as Deputy Chief Legal Aid Defense Counsel. I am more involved in the work of legal aid, free legal aid. I meet people, but this concept of transgenders community, empowering them, talking about their rights, I would say this is very much unique. This is very much novel in these areas. I would say even in Delhi also, when you are talking, this is not normal. You guys are doing a great job, and more of such programs are to be organized, not at only at the capital level, but in different states, union territories, and the district levels. So that, because you see, the transgender community, or your LGBT, they are not only staying in Delhi. They are not only staying in Delhi. They are staying in Punch. They are staying in Jammu. They are staying in Haryana. They are staying in Tamil Nadu. Everywhere they are staying. So this awareness, this welcoming gestures must come from all the communities, from all the places. Before concluding, I would discuss recently I was going through the newspaper. Perhaps this is the news of last year. In The Hindu, March last year, there was a news. There was an intersex activist, Mr. Gopi Shankar. Gopi Shankar was, if I'm not wrong, his name was Gopi Shankar. He was one of the members from the South regional states. Was member in the National Commission for Transgender Person. What happened? He resigned. He resigned from that council, which was shocking to me. When I when I dig deep into that news, I found out that he was of the view that these posts, or his position must not only be ceremonial. This is a news which I'm quoting. You may Google it. You will come to know about it. That these commissions may not just be ceremonial positions. Rather, they must be given certain powers. They must be involved properly. This must not be just lip service. Or he said, he quoted that there was too much of bureaucratic interference into that. So here we all have to understand that the National Commission for Transgender persons, or national this act, Transgenders Act 2019, this is just not a piece of paper, or just not a formality. In order, if we are really interested to work for them, we want to make them empowered, we want to bring them at par with us, we want to ensure there is equality before law, we want to talk all those things, then we have to we must ensure that all of these institutions are given due importance, due share, and the number of members from the transgender persons and LGBT must be increased. Their representation number of persons must be increased in the National Commission for Transgender People. They must be given reservations, and more of such legal awareness programs must be done at every level, be it at the university level, at the schools level, at the states level, at the districts levels. With these, well, I guess I had exceeded my time. My apologies if I have exceeded my time. Thank you so much. And again, I must say, you have done great job in organizing an awareness discussion on this important topic. Thank you so much. Dhanyavad. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for appreciating and acknowledging the contribution of Amity Law School Noida in organizing this webinar on Transgender Act. And thank you very much for sharing your practical and personal experience, especially talking about what problems people not only face in Jammu and Kashmir, but in a metro city like Delhi. And you also spoke about like the moment a child is born and the child identifies or the parent identifies that the child is a transgender, what problems they face. So the right of self-identification is very important, about which you emphasize. And you also shared many important things related to that. And you also emphasized on one more important thing, that if the council is made, the transgender should be made the member of that, so that it becomes more vibrant and a living council, so that they will be better people to know that what laws and policies should be formulated for them. So it is a very good idea, and I hope the people who are listening to you and who could be a messenger for passing on this information would definitely take upon this point of yours. And you also spoke about one more important thing, that is reservation of transgenders, which is important because there are certain privileges which should be given to them so that they can become at par with us. So thank you very much for enlightening the audience with your information and knowledge, sir, and giving information related to your personal experiences and also sharing certain case laws. So it was a very enriching session. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Now our next speaker is Mr. Rupinder Singh, sir. Sir is Assistant Professor of Law in Amity University, Amity Law School, Noida. Sir is an enthusiastic young lawyer and an academician practicing dealing with corporate and IPR laws. And sir also organizes conferences which are related to constitutional law. And he has organized many conferences for Amity Law School, Noida. And now I would request sir to please share his words of wisdom with our audience. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Lekha ma'am. My greetings to my co-panelist members, Dr. Bhanu Pratap sir, Dr. Vidyutma Jha, and Ms. Vijay Agrawal. The topic which we have been asked to speak in today's webinar is on the council which has been created and established under the Transgender Act, insufficient or underrepresented. Though my fellow speakers have made you understand about why this law has been come up, how the transgender has been considered to be a marginalized segment of the society, they had made a beautiful background for me to put across my thoughts on this issue while they make the reference towards the NALSA judgment, or they set the foundations of the key features of the Transgender Act of 2019. Manu sir has very rightly pointed out that this law came into existence in 2019 and in August 2019. And in September 2020, the first council is being constituted. Sir has very rightly pointed out with reference to a controversy also which this council has witnessed in the early days only, that is it just a council? Is it only a ceremonial office? Or whether it is effectively, efficiently is going to discharge those mandate which has been given to us under Section 17 of the Transgender Act. In order to make this study more interesting, the academic, the notion has compelled me to check whether there is any other law also where there is such type of council is in existence. As Lekha ma'am has pointed out, that my area of interest has been a corporate law also. So the very first thing which I have came to across, sir, there are similar phenomena you found under the GST. Under the GST, goods and service tax, there is under that law which has been come up which has been given to us via constitutional amendment. There is also a council which has been mandated. So because in order to reach to the conclusion of the question which has been raised in today's webinar, whether this council is underrepresented we need to understand that what about the other laws where this type of council has been created, what is the representation there, and what mandate has been given to them. So with this backdrop, I would like to start with my PowerPoint presentation. And audience may interrupt in between. Your questions are welcome. You may just point it out in between. I believe my slides are visible.
Yes, sir, they are visible.
Yes, visible.
So the topic which has been assigned to us for the today's discussion, that is National Council of Transgender Persons, that is NCTP, which has been came into existence in the September 2020. And the thing which we need to assess during this discussion is its underrepresentation or its insufficiency. As very rightly pointed out by Bhanu sir, that we need to include more and more persons of intersex, those who can contribute, rather having the bureaucrats and the ministers on board. Better to have those also who is actually facing this type of discriminations or the atrocities which has been covered under this law. What we need to understand at this stage, we need to understand that how this law and what is the broad objective which has been assigned to this particular law. So this legislation, that's the Transgenders Protection Act of 2019, it seeks to protect the rights of transgender persons. Many people get confused the transgender with the LGBTQ. Look, Transgender Protection Act 2019 is only confined to T, that is transgender. The category of lesbian, the category of gays, that do not fall under the definition of a transgender, which has been mandated under Section 2K of the Transgender Act. For the 2K defines transgender as person whose gender does not match with the gender assigned to that person's at birth and includes trans men and trans women, whether or not such person has undergone a sex reassignment surgery or hormone therapy or laser therapy or such other therapy. Persons with intersex variations, gender queer, and the persons having such socio-cultural identities as Kinnar, Hijra, Arabni, and Jogda. So there's an inclusive definition which has been provided under Section 2 subclause K, which only confined to the transgender. So one thing which need to be fundamentally clear to all of us, that this NTCP, and for that matter, this Transgender Act is only confined to the transgender. And transgender means a person whose gender identity, it may happen at any time in your life that you may realize that, look, the gender which has been assigned to me, that is actually not representing what is I am particularly. And that's why in the NALSA judgment also, the mandate which has been given, that is of creating of or recognition of a third gender altogether. So the key objective of this act, if you will check, the objective of the act is to provide the recognition of transgender persons with access to welfare measures, including healthcare, education, employment, and opportunities. So what this law has been come up, they come up that we will give the legal recognition to the transgender first. And henceforth, if you reperuse the provisions of the Transgender Act, there is a process of a registration available. There is an application form which has also been provided under the Transgender Rules 20, and the application need to be addressed to the district collector for that matter. So the law says that we will recognize the transgender. Then having recognizing these transgender, we will work upon the welfare measures or the healthcare measures, their education and the employment opportunities, which has been mentioned by the other speakers also in their presentation. So I hope I had let down the base pretty clear that under the Transgender Act or under this organization, under this council, we are going to talk about only and only the transgender. Let us quickly understand the key features of this Transgender Act of 2019 to appreciate the major concern. what has been addressed by this particular law. It seeks to establish a national council for transgender persons. So it seeks to establish an organization called NCTP. Then it also says that those who will apply for a recognition as a transgender, we will give them a certificate of identity. So the Act states that a transgender person shall have right to self-person gender identity. A certificate of identity can be obtained at a district magistrate's office, and a revised certificate is to be obtained if sex is changed. Interestingly, if you will appreciate, I will compare this provision with the United Kingdom. In the UK, any person can voluntarily disclose under the Recognition Act, they can voluntarily disclose that what is going to be my gender identity, man, woman, trans man, or a trans woman for that matter. But under the India, under the Transgender Act, it has been mandated that you will make an application to a district magistrate, and the district magistrate is going to decide on your application based on the disclosure which has been made by you there. So the Act also has the provision that provides transgender the right of residence with parents and the immediate family members, something which has been pointed out by Ma'am Vijay Agrawal as well as by Dr. Jha, that society is not accepting a transgender. So this law gives them that legal right that the society should accept this. This law also mandates the prohibition against discrimination. So the Act prohibits the discrimination against the transgender persons in various sectors, such as education, employment, healthcare, etc. And this law, very interestingly, also laid down the procedure of also made a reference towards the punishment. It states that the offenses against the transgender persons will attract imprisonment between 6 months and 2 years, as well as a fine. Very interestingly, the punishment has been provided under this law, but what is an appropriate forum to file such claims or to make certain complaints if any transgender is facing an issue, that is entirely missing under the Act. So I believe you may go to a police, then the police may take a cognizance, and they may, because in order to make a charge, they may reference towards the Transgender Act 2019 for that matter. Moving further, let us also understand the background that how this National Council for Transgender Persons has been created. Because 2019 Act says that they need to be an NTCP. But what is the background behind it? The central government organized the committee in 2013 to monitor the obstacles and the hardships encountered by trans people in country in order to better their condition and assist them to get acceptance and enjoy a normal life. So what we can understand that the effort has been started 6 years before. In 2013, the Supreme Court of India issued one of the most significant ruling in 2014, designating a transgender individuals to be a third gender. So the Nalsa case judgment of 2014 was one of the transgender committee's most significant streams. Soon after 2014, a private bill has been submitted in the Rajya Sabha, but that has been left. So ultimately, the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Bill 2019 was introduced, and the central government have enacted that law in the month of August, and the central government has eventually announced the NCTP as a part of this particular law in the year 2019. So that under the 2019 Act, the NCTP has been constituted in the year 2020. So what is this NCTP, which is a central point of discussion of today's webinar? So under this law, there is a council which has been made, namely called National Council for Transgender Persons, NCTP. It is a legally recognized agency created under Section 16 of the Act of the Indian government that provides policy advice on all matters affecting a transgender, intersex, and those with the range of GISC, that is gender identity, expression, and the sex characteristics identities. So it is a council which has been created at a central level. It is, you may say it is a government agency. Its creation in 2020 was planned under the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act of 2019. So the parent legislation for the constitution of the NTCP is the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019 only. One delegate from each of the 5 regions, that is North region, South region, East, West, and Northeast, as well as the 4 transgender and 1 intersex individual make up the council. So this council is going to have a lot of persons. There's the ex officio members, then there are the nominated members, 5 knowledgeable members of the NGOs also, as has been pointed out by Bhanu sir also. Moving further, let us understand the constitution, that who is there, because our topic is insufficient or underrepresented. Let us explore the first question, that is of insufficient or underrepresented. Let's understand the numbers at this moment. So there will be a chairperson who is an ex officio. Chairperson is going to be Union Minister of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. This entire NTCP or the Transgenders Act implementation has been given to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Then there will be a vice chairperson who is also be an ex officio member. He is going to be a Minister of State, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Then there is going to be another ex officio members, then the nominated members and the member secretary of the Government of India, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Other than this law also have the Secretary of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, representative not below the Joint Secretary of the Ministry of Department of Health and Family Welfare, Home Affairs, Housing and Urban Affairs, Minority Affairs, Human Resources Development, Rural Development, Labor, Employment, Department of Legal Affairs, Department of Pensions and the Pensions Welfare, and at last, other than this, in order to make this council more versatile, there is also a representation from the commissions called NHRC and the NCW. So if you will understand that how this council has been constituted, council is having the representation of the ministers, the representations of joint secretaries of the different 11 departments. Then there is a reference towards the representation also from the NHRC and the NCW. Moving further, there are the nominated members also, as just pointed out in the beginning, representatives of the state government and the union territories by rotation, one each from the north, south, east, west, northeast, and region. So what the law mandates, that the nominated members, they are going to represent, each region is going to be represented by one state, and that too on a rotation basis. And initially one state so nominated, they're going to hold a position for 3 years. So north, Jammu and Kashmir. From the south, we have the representation from Madhya Pradesh. From the east, from Odisha. And from the west, from the Gujarat. And from the northeast, we have the Tripura. There are 5 representatives of transgender committee, one each from north, south, east, west, and northeast regions. So from the north, we have Sri Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi. From the south, as Bhanu sir has also pointed out, the time this council has been constituted, Sri Gopi Shankar Madurai was also a representative. From the east, Ms. Meera Parida. From the west, Mr. Zainab Zaved Patel. From the northeast, Sri Kak Ching Mum, Shyam Chand Sharma. They were initially who were there in this council. 5 experts to represent the NGOs and the association. We have Sri Aryan Pasha, we have Sri Vihan Pitambar, we have Ms. Reshma Prasad, and Sri Patel Chandu Bhai Ganesh Das as the initial members of this particular council. So if I'll say in terms of numbers, you may say, sir, it seems to be quite a bulky organization. 5 from the states, so 5, then another 5 from the transgender committee, that is 10, then another 5 NGOs, that is 5, 2 ministers, then it goes to 17, and the 11 other departments. So somewhere the numbers goes around 28. But whether this 28 numbers are going to represent the concern of the transgender, that is something which is interesting to examine and interesting to compare with the other jurisdiction also. So let us understand that what task which has been assigned to this particular council. Because a body has been created, we also need to understand the task which has been assigned to it. The task has been covered under section 16 of the Act. It will provide the central government with advice on the creation of policies, programs, laws, and initiatives that have an impact on the transgender individual. So they will guide, they will assist, and they will advise the central government whenever any policy, program, law, and initiative for a transgender is going to be taken. Secondly, to keep track of and assess the results of laws and programs that aim to give transgender individuals the full equality and inclusion. So there is also a mandate which has been created by law that you need to keep a track and assess the result of this Transgender Act. That though this law has been passed in 2019, but whether this law which has been passed is operating also, or whether it is able to achieve, or it is actually achieving the objectives which has been decided by this law to be achieved. Then third, to evaluate and coordinate all government agencies. Now, that is very important. In a government setup, what is the interesting and important is the interdepartment coordination. So this council has also been put an obligation, statutory obligation, to evaluate and coordinate all government agencies' efforts to address transgender problems, as well as those of other government and the non-governmental organizations. Look, there is a reference which has been passed that there should be a evaluation of a coordination among the government and the non-governmental organizations. But those who practice, those who deals with the government department, understand that how interdepartmental communications become sometimes a very tedious task. Then to address the issues involving the transgender people, then to make amends for the transgender people complaints, and must carry out the additional duties that the central government may specify. Now, under this section 16, there is a reference that they can make amendments, or they can hear to the complaints of a transgender people. Try to understand that this functions which has been assigned to the NCTP under this act seems quite good, but very interestingly, there is no secretariat which has been provided, or there is no reference towards the establishment of a secretariat for doing the necessary documentation or to make the necessary correspondence with the departments or the other non-governmental departments. So that is a point which you need to take onto an account, insufficient or underrepresented. Now let's check because the council came into existence in the month of September 2020. If you will explore the population of a transgender as per census 2011, it is 4,87,803, and I believe that in those another 11 years which has been passed after 2011, the population would have reached around 6 lakhs. 6 lakhs of the population is represented by 28 persons, that too of heterogeneous interest which is going to be reflected by the parties. The council came into existence in September 2020, and the council had their first meeting on 15/10/2020, and the second meeting was held on 10/11/2021. 15/10/2020 meeting, if you read the minutes of the meeting, which is available again on the website, there's a special dashboard which has been created for a transgender persons, which I'll also show. If you read the minutes are like welcoming those who were the transgender members. They saying it's an historic decision. They made a reference, they actually endorse that it is actually sabka saath, sabka vishwas, because now the transgender has also been brought into a streamline. I'm not at all saying that the beginning is bad. I'm actually of the view that yes, the beginning is very good, but in order to make this organization or institutions make this council more robust, we need to compare that how are the other councils which are acting. So what is the significance of the National Council of Transgender Persons? It's a good thing that NCTP was established with the intention of increasing tolerance and acceptance for transgender persons. One thing is pretty clear, that once the law has been come up, at least we lawyers who say that we are the people of India bound by the law, we are also accepting the transgender and their status despite of our personal reservations. Secondly, the council's capacity to recognize the challenges faced by the transgender community and offer the government a useful guidance will, however, rely on how will it run. I'm not saying that NTCP will not assist the work. Definitely it will assist. There is a representation of a transgender community, but it is just a beginning. There will be a lot to discuss, or lot to analyze, or lot to audit also, to make further comment on its insufficiency at this stage. In addition to the laws and rules, an inclusive approach is needed, with the legal and the law enforcement institutions being made more aware that transgender issues in particular. One thing which we need to appreciate also, that it is because of this council, because of the Ministry of Social Justice, we are speaking on this topic. Though the syllabuses of the law school, where the teachers are teaching the gender justice, or the classes of the constitution where there's a lectures on equality, would have made a reference towards, but this transgender as an area was never become an area of its own sui generis study. That is only has been happened by virtue of this Act of 2019. Now, before I'll start making a comparative study, what I would like to also do with you guys, I would like to showcase you the website of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and how they have created a dashboard for the protection of the transgender person. I hope this website is visible to you. That is managed by the Smile Foundation, transgender.dosje.gov.in.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
There is a very interesting thing why I have just made a reference towards this website, because there is something very interesting, online real-time dashboard which has been created. As I've told you that under this law, there is a mandate. If you want to have a protection, you have to apply for a registration. As per the 2011 census, the population of the transgender is almost 5 lakhs. Let us understand the total certificates or the ID card which has been issued till date. The number has not reached to 12,000 even. 11,206 applications where the certificate has been made. Then there is an ID issued, and not eligible applicant also, the number is being shown. Then this dashboard also shows you the state-wise, the distribution of this particular number. Maharashtra is leading towards the registration of the transgenders, followed by Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Kerala, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Chhattisgarh, and the list goes on. Why this number is less when the population is 5 lakh need to be assessed by us, because somewhere the society or those persons who are actually a transgender is having some sort of maybe they are not able to accept this fact, or they believe that the society is not going to accept them. So this is an interesting area, the data which I would like to put across to all the listeners. Other than this, as I've told you, that you guys can also endorse to their reports, which Ministry of Law and Justice keep on preparing under their publications. So the first meeting which has been happened in the month of October 2020, the minutes of that meeting is also available on this very website. Now going back to my slides. Now with this backdrop, let me now make a comparative study of this council with some another interesting council. As all of aware that a transgender is an issue with reference to the to those persons, or it is basically a social issue. But a similar sort of council has also been created
under the Transgender Act of under the GST, that too via constitutional amendment. If you guys will compare under the Transgender Act, when the council is going to be created, there is an representation of the states. So from the north, we have taken one state, from the east, we have taken one state, and they were representing the entire region. Very interestingly, when it comes on the collection of the revenue, and when it comes in terms of economics, the GST Council includes all the states, all 28. So in order to implement the GST, the constitutional bill, that is 122 amendment bill, was introduced in the parliament and passed by the Rajya Sabha on 3rd August 2016 and Lok Sabha on 8th August 2016. The constitutional amendment bill was passed by more than 15 states, and thereafter the Honorable President gave an assent to the Constitution of 101st Amendment Act 2016 on the 8th September 2016. So on 2016, 8th September, the GST come into existence. Since then, the GST Council and been notified, bringing into issue the existence of constitutional body to decide the issues relating to the GST. So it is since 2016 up till 2023, very interestingly, the GST Council has met more than 15 times. On September 16, 2016, the Government of India issued notifications bringing into effect all the sections of Constitutional Amendment Bill, setting firmly into motion to rolling out of GST. This notification set out an outer limit of time of 1 year, that is till 15/9/27, for bringing into effect the GST. Very interestingly, when it comes to the revenue, the law which has been passed, it not only includes the representation of all the states, rather there is also a timeline which has been provided within which this particular legislation need to be bring into execution. As per section 2, as per article 279 of the constitution, this committee is going to be constituted by the president. GST council is going to be constituted by the president within 60 days from the commencement of article 279A. The notification for the bringing into force of Article 279A with effect from 12 September 2016 was issued on 10 September 2016. As per Article 279A, the amendment constitution, the GST Council, which will be a joint forum of center and states. So what you need to again emphasize again that when in a revenue side, you are talking about a joint collaboration of the central and the state. And I personally believe that in the social issues also, it should be a joint collaboration of both central and the state. So the Union Finance Minister was the chairperson. The Union Minister of State in charge of Revenue Office, all were the member. The Minister in charge of Finance or Taxation or any other minister nominated by each state government, they will be the further members of the GST Council. So I hope now you understand that over here 28 states are constituting the number. I'm not saying that we should employ the GST Council's structure. No, that's not at all my hypothesis. My argument is that there should be a proper representation and a proper inclusion of the state. As per Article 279A subclause 4, the council will make recommendations. So what this council is doing, likewise the NCTP, the council will make the recommendation to the union and the states to impart issues related to GST, like goods and services that may be subjected to or exempted from GST, model GST laws, principles that govern the place of supply, threshold limit, GST rates, including the floor rates, bands, special rates for raising additional resources during natural calamities, disasters, special provisions for certain stuff. So the another reservation when I examine the Transgender Act over there under section 17, the references which has been made, they are very, very broad. And I personally believe when the mandate is very broad, it dilutes very fast. Moving further, the Union Cabinet under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi approved the setting of GST Council on 12 September 2016 and also setting up its secretariat as per the following details. So if you have read the section 17 in my previous slide, they say that they will address to the complaints of the transgender. They will study their problem. Sir, once you don't going to have any permanent office or a secretariat specifically designated only for this task, because the counter argument which may be made, so there is already a Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment which is taking care of this issue. But my idea is that we need to give a separate staff and a separate office or a separate address to deal with these issues. So this law says that there should be a creation of a GST council as per 279A of the amended constitution, creation of a GST council secretariat, appointment of secretary revenue as ex officio member, and inclusion of chairperson and the Central Board of Excise and the Customs. So in 2016, this type of council has been constituted in order to implement the GST. This GST council has met, I have already pointed, more than 15 times. So 6 till up to 2022, they on an average, they have met thrice in a year. But very interestingly, our council of NCTP has only met as of now 2 times. The minutes of first meeting, if you will peruse, not much in detail has been discussed. The minutes of the second meeting is not available in public domain as of now. Very interesting thing which I also would like to put across, that is timetable based implementation of GST. Similarly, if we actually want and we are serious, then we need to decide the timeline. We need to assess when the population is 5 lakh of the transgender, then why there is only a registration of 14,000 persons? Why they are not able to register? Whether the incentives or the motives behind it are not appropriate, or the system which is going to be created, that is not appropriate. There is a criticism of transgender rules based on the PUCL judgment, saying the PUCL judgment says that there should be a self-disclosure of the gender, rather applying to a third person, a DM, district magistrate, to address or to decide the gender identity. If there is any question, then I would love to answer them. Otherwise, I would like to make a conclusion.
Sir, we will take up the questions after your presentation.
Okay, so ma'am, I'll just conclude in a minute or two. So the law is a welcome step. We have a Transgender Act 2019. We are happy about it. Somewhere we are able to provide them a statutory recognition. Under the law, we have constituted a council also. Again, a very welcome step. To say that it is insufficient, I personally believe, is early to make a comment. Because in a 2 years or in a 3 years, we cannot decide the fate of a particular council. Fourth, what is important at this juncture, that this council should decide certain agendas, and they have to decide the timeline to achieve those agendas. Secondly, the council should have definitely some persons of judiciary. And thirdly, the council should also decide that how the provisions of this act, particularly of offenses or of the penalties, are going to put in enforcement. Either they're going to sensitize the police in this regard, or to any executive offices where to make such type of complaints. So I'll say that indeed it is a welcome step. The council is doing, council has been constituted, and I believe that they will discharge the huge obligations which has been mandated to them, and they will listen to the voice of the transgender. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rupinder sir, for giving such a detailed presentation and for sharing the initial dates of the National Council and its effectiveness. And also you informed us that under GST also a law has come up and there is a council which is made for transgenders. And the way you have given your presentation, any student who has listened to you would have been highly benefited, because you have explained explicitly everything related to the law in detail. You have also shared the data, you shared the website, and also with the help of examples, you have shared the information related to that. And you highlighted the background of the National Council for Transgender Persons, and you made it very easy for the students and for everybody who is in the panel and in the house to know more in detail about the Transgender Act, because many people are not aware of it. So I found your presentation really very beneficial, especially the comparative analysis that you have done and the website which you have shared, which later on people can visit and get more detailed information. So I'm really thankful to you for sharing such a detailed presentation. Thank you very much, sir, on behalf of Amity Law School, Noida. Over to you, Sumitra ma'am.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So it's now the time for the students and all the attendees to pose their questions.
I just like to clarify one thing. The comparison which I have drawn, my view is not that there is under the GST there is a protection available to a transgender. But my point was that under the GST there is a council which has been formed. Under the Transgender Act there is also a council which has been formed. The GST council talk about the representation of all 28 states and their finance minister. Then my argument is that at least in the Transgender Council, there should be a representation of Ministry of Social Welfare of each state, rather being representing the representation from region basis. So that's the clarification which I would like to just put across to the audience.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
got that. Yeah, got that, sir. So I'm just checking whether Advocate Bhanu Pratap is still here, because the first question that I have with me is for him. Anyways, so this question is for all the panelists, Advocate Shruti, Advocate Vidyotma, and Rupendra sir. This question is for you. So provided that there is the national portal for the transgender persons, and that they can get their certificate of identity from that portal. So what is the timeline that is there with them? Do they have a particular timeline, or it's like very, very digital? They type their details and get the certificates instantly? Did you get my question? Hello, am I audible, ma'am?
Ma'am, under the transgender rules of 2020, a timeline has been provided. If you will check the rule number 5, that is issue of certificate of identity for transgender person under section 6. So there is a duration which has been decided, that is of 60 days. So our district magistrate, once an application is going to be made, they have to decide within a span of 60 days for that matter.
Okay, so there is a supplementary question to this. So the person, he doesn't want to be disclosed, and he says that, ma'am, fine, we are getting the timeline of 60 days, okay, but we are feeling very much undermined, because why should we in totality have to prove our identity that I am a transgender? You have never taken a certificate from being a female, or maybe your brother has never taken a certificate for being a male. Why are we told that you can get a certificate of identity? Now, this question is very very sensitive. Advocate Shruti, would you like to take this?
Yeah, certainly, because this is a question that can be challenged back to the court, and certainly the point raised by this person is very appropriate, because once we are saying that we are not going to discriminate, this issue that you have to provide the certificate relating is certainly discriminatory, because once you are born a female, you don't go to any DM office or anywhere to go and tell that yes, you are a female or a male. So equally transgender, what is the necessity? You are born whatever be it gender, it should not be. And I think, yes, since Supreme Court has taken this much and this far, certainly a PIL should be forwarded again to the court on this ground and issue that the transgender providing certificates to the that they are born should be challenged back. See, if you are providing certificates for some job reservations that is applicable for people from backward communities, or the women reservation if applicable in certain states in certain posts, then it is altogether another issue that you are proving your gender or you're proving your community. That is for the protection of upliftment of the people. There you have to prove. But only because you are a transgender and you have to go and inform, this is definitely wrong. And when I went through this act, even I felt that this is not the right way. Why are you to go and declare everyone? You have the right to live with your parents. You have to right to go to the schools and colleges. So this is appropriately asked question.
Yeah, got that, Advocate Shruti. Very nice. As the topic for today was National Council for the Transgender, whether underrepresented or insufficient, and Rupendra sir has given so many suggestions also, provided that the council should also contain 5 members from the transgender community. Sir and ma'am, is this at the national level, or there are also state bodies where there would be such people in the community? Because this is the national council. Are there similar councils at the state level, and whether do they take representations from the transgender community?
If you will examine the provisions of the Act, there is only one national council which has been created. Maybe when this law further going to be re-examined, we may go for the state councils as well. So idea is no doubt good, because that depends that how you want to, delegate and how you want to involve the participation. My first suggestion was, let's have a representation of a state, fair enough. The second suggestion, which also comes pretty good, let's create the state councils under the national councils. The way we create into an sports and sports federations are there, like national federation, then there's a state federation, then there's a district federations, one affiliate another. So we can have that type of mechanism also.
Right, sir. So maybe in times to come, we have the state governments also, which will be represented, and maybe a similar council can truly help the cause of the transgenders. Now, this question is again for all the panelists. Rupendra sir, you also had been in practice, and Advocate Shruti and Advocate Vidyotma, both of you are still in practice. So, in the type of cases that you take up, have you ever come across transgenders, and have they expressed their inability or their insecurity to go ahead with their matters, especially in the court?
I would like to take the question. See, I have not come across such case, but I'll definitely say that I have come across such people a lot, not many times. In fact, I have lived in hostels, and I have met those, like they used to live with us like they were treated in a separate way. In schools and colleges, I actually, when I was in school, like in class 4 and 5, I had a very close friend who was a transgender, and I didn't know that I should not be telling her, because I was actually checking that why she's different from all of us. And then I checked with doctors in my family. They said that she can go, I discussed also that she can go for the operation, and she can take one gender, select one gender for herself, which she outrightly said that she doesn't want, and she's happy being herself. So from there I relate the idea that they are not ashamed of themselves. We actually don't treat them equally or at par with ourselves, and that way we are making them uncomfortable, their existence uncomfortable. So we need to understand that they are the human beings created by God, and there's no difference between the individuals that we are and them. But of course, I will understand the point that because the same-sex marriage issue, the adoption, the property rights issues are coming up. So because it is not going to happen anytime soon that they will get all the rights that a normal human being gets, because they are created different by the God himself. So they are actually facing it. The right to life and right to dignity is actually breached at some state with them.
Right, very well taken. Well, there's another question for the panelists. As per the National Council of the Transgenders Persons Act and as per the National Council that is created, there will also be one representation from the Human Resource Development. So, what do you think, esteemed panelists? What do you think should be the criteria to select the people from Ministry of Education? What is their criteria? I mean, as such, I've been working for many years in the field of social work and outreach, but I have never received any email also, or I have never read it in the newspapers that people are looking for some representation from the education pattern. Although we are the major stakeholders in tackling their problems or meeting such people because we have a very wide network and a very wide canvas of work. Over to you, esteemed panelists.
You mean what the Ministry of this Human Justice should, have the conditions or criterias while they take up the questions of transgender? What exactly you meant to say?
No. The question is that the National Council for the Transgender Persons, it consists of a representation, one representative from the Ministry of Health, another representative from the Ministry of Home Affairs, and there is another representative from the HRD Ministry. So I'm talking about HRD Ministry because we come under the purview of that. So me or any of the educators who have met, all of us have never seen, we have never read that there is a criteria for which any representation is invited from educators, from faculty members, from teachers. What do you think is the criteria that has been set for selecting the representations from such ministries? Like, I understand that the Ministry of Health would certainly deploy a person or depute a person who has fair knowledge and understanding of the health issues related to transgenders. Similarly, it goes with the people of the Home Affairs because they look after security issues and other things. Similarly, there should be a representative from the Ministry of HRD who should have a fair knowledge and understanding about the lives and the lifestyles and the mannerisms, the behavior aspect of the transgender persons. What is the criteria set up by these ministries, especially the HRD ministry, to select the representative? Over to you, Advocate Shruti.
Certainly, see, if you are selecting some people from, HRD ministry, the important criteria should be their backend, that whether they are aware about the major issues that transgenders they are facing. I mean, the social issues of transgender, or their backend, if they have worked into it, like your university has a council for transgender. So in such case, people who are working on it, organizing the webinars, conferences, are making people aware of it. So such people who have the backend knowledge of transgender community, they are working at grassroots level for the upliftment of transgenders and working towards, bringing equality for them. It is and it should also be one of the important parameters of selecting the people from the HRD ministry. Apart from the educational qualifications they hold or particular, research reports they have drafted on transgender people. So these are the important criteria that ministry should keep into the mind while they are selecting people from the HRD ministries, or the teachers or the scholars who are working into this, field.
Yeah, now the question.
Sumitra ma'am, if I may add on what Shruti ma'am has just pointed out, if you read the section 16 of the act, which talk about the constitution of the council, over there, when the ministries are going to be represented, the person should not be below the rank of joint secretary. So one thing which is pretty clear, the representation is going to be of the executive. But yes, what I expect, that there should be that JS or the joint secretary, which is actually a transgender or has actually worked on these sensitive topics.
Yes, sir.
But I believe that apart from the joint secretary level people and the transgender people, if the scholars and the NGOs and the teachers, professors who are also working into the transgender, for the past several years and are working at grassroots level, they should also be given the opportunity to be, there in this member team, because the person who has grassroots level knowledge can also assist way beyond than the people who have theoretical knowledge into a particular field.
Yes, ma'am. So the next question is very easy. I think Advocate Vidyotma and Rupendra sir, please take that up. And that question is, If any person is a transgender person and he has a problem, what should he do? What is the first step to approach the National Council? What should he do? Provided he doesn't have an exact legal problem, he has certain psychological, sociological problems. What should he do? What does a transgender person do? Should he directly approach the council or go to the court? What's
If you like the website which I have shown over there, they have created a phone line service for general, technical, and for the personal reasons. Any concerned persons who is feeling affected due to this, they may make a call there. Ma'am, the very interesting thing of the entire Transgender Act, and when I read about the council is having persons and the representation. But literally, whether the council is having the power to enforce this law, there is no transgender police which has been created. There is no civil bodies or any particular designated forum which has been provided under this act. In fact, I was reading the provision. There is an offenses and penalties. Offenses can go vary from the jail can go from the 6 months to 2 years. But who is going to take a cognizance of that offense? The act actually missed this, interlinkages of one law with the another law, and there's a gap which I personally believe somewhere of this.
There's a gap, I agree, sir. But then it is also called dysphoria, because these people always go through some kind of mental stress given by us. So this is actually anxiety that they go through. For that, no act or law can be made. For that, they have to seek some mental health care or something like that. But there should be a cell, or there should be some place or platform that takes care of these issues also, because these people are not normal people, and even normal people these days have many psychiatric issues. And for these people, it's very the psychiatric issues are a normal issue because they are not being treated properly. So it should be taken care by some psychiatrist or psychological there should be a platform to take care of this.
Yeah, that's why that platform has been provided. That is on transgender.dosj.gov.in, where there's a phone line available. You may call, you may get the counseling also, or if you want to proceed with any technical issue, they may also guide you accordingly.
Rupendra sir, can you once again tell the website? What is it?
I'll just copy the URL and share in the chat.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you. I think we are now going to take up the last two questions. So the second last question is, so when a transgender person approaches, when they get the access to the national portal, they can track the status of application, whether it is rejected, accepted, or whether they have a particular grievance, and they know where they have to go. But is there any transparency mechanism in the entire redressal process? Advocate Vidyutma, would you like to take this?
Well, I'm not very much aware of this transparency issue.
Fine, but the national portal, it says that things will be very, very transparent, and because there are also pro bono advocates who can help them. Yes, Advocate Shruti, you would like to add something?
Yeah, transparency in this National Council?
The national portal for transgenders.
See, it's transparent. Transparency is there in almost every ministry with RTI coming in. Plus, also says that transparency should be there. And citizens have the right to question it back. If you have filed a complaint and actions are not taken, so certainly every government department has this much regulations to be transparent by a general provision.
Right. So now,
in fact, if you will refer to the transgender rules, there is a rule number 8 which mandate that if a district magistrate is rejecting any application, they need to communicate those reasons in writing. Moreover, there is also right to appeal available. If you are dissatisfied with the judgment of a district collector, then the appeal can be made to the appropriate.
Right, so very well answered. And And finally, this is the last question also before we would finally wind up the webinar, and all the esteemed panelists. This question is not from the students or anybody. This question is from me. It is not actually a question, but I would like to have your one-liner suggestions and one-liner, what to say, piece of motivation for all the students who are watching now.
There was some
Yeah,
questions.
I said, what would be your one-liner piece of motivation for all the listeners?
Certainly, for the people and for the transgender, I would say we all should, be strongly determined that we all have been given a birth as a human being. So we should feel blessed that whether we are women, men, or a transgender, we should be obliged to the God that whatever birth we have taken, what we give to the society, we serve the society, what positions we take, how we utilize is what we give back to God. What we are born is a gift of God. What we give back to the society is our gift to the God. So we should not discriminate between what God has given to every human being. We should love every creature on earth, and we should remain in peace, and we should try and remove the abuses, gender equalities, and any kind of inhuman, atrocities and crime. So that's my conclusion for this webinar.
Thank you, ma'am. Advocate Dr. Vidyotma, what would be your one-liner motivation for all the listeners?
I feel we should actually believe in the concept of live and let live, because all are made by God, and even if it is about human beings first of all, so we know that they also have the same mind, same heart. It's just the formation that is different. So we should let them live and live them with dignity, and all the rights should be given to them. And if at all it is breached, they can access the courts and the system that is made for them.
Right, very well said, ma'am. Rupendra sir, your one-liner motivation for all the listeners.
What I can conclude that I always say is that we should step into the shoes of another person, try to understand what they are facing, and then assess and make the judgment that what we are saying, what we are speaking for them, what actions they are correct. We have to understand that the religion, caste, creed, color, sex was not opted by us. It is a God made, God created. So we should respect the creation of a God. And I 100% agree with the Vidyotma Jha ma'am that let live, let the other live. Thank you.
Thank you all the panelists for taking all the questions so very well. In fact, these questions, people have many kinds of questions, and out of fear or maybe out of any other impression that they have on their mind, actually, the transgender persons, they hesitate in coming up with the questions. I'm glad that the questions come up to me on my WhatsApp number. Now over to Lekha ma'am.
Thank you, Sumitra ma'am.
So, yes, Lekha ma'am is here. Yes.
I hope I'm audible and visible.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm thankful to all the panelists, and we had a very good session today. I would formally invite Dr. Sumitra Singh ma'am to keep the hand.
Oh, that was really wonderful. That was really wonderful formal invitation. Thank you, Lekha ma'am. Well, everybody, a very, very proud day for us, because we have just concluded with the 7th webinar in the series of the webinars on transgender persons at 2019 and 2020. I totally I'm grateful for the faith that the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment have reposed in Amity Legal Aid and Redressal Committee, which is moving very high under the directions of our dear and respected Honorable Joint HOI and Additional Director, Professor Dr. Aditya Tomar sir, who has wished us good luck in all our endeavors at Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee. This day wouldn't have been possible without the relentless support of Aditya Tomar sir. I'm really thankful to Giriraj sir and also Shweta Sehgal ma'am, who've been an integral part of this webinar series from the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, National Institute of Social Defense. Well, everybody, I'm thankful to all the members of today's elite panel, Advocate Dr. Shruti Bisht, who is a practicing advocate at the Supreme Court of India and also the President of International Economic Forum for Commerce and Industry, President of the National Council for Cybersecurity at Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And also I'm very thankful to Dr. Vidyotma Jha, who is also a member of the intellectual cell of Medhavini Sindhu Sachin of the and a very smart practicing advocate at Honorable Supreme Court of India. I'm thankful to Advocate Bhanu Pratap ji, who's an advocate at Jammu and Kashmir High Court and also Chief Counsel for the Legal Aid in the District of Poonch. I'm also thankful to dear friend and colleague Rupendra Singh sir for his very, very wonderful presentation, and many students are WhatsApping me that they want your presentations. So, sir, what should I reply to them? And also many people, faculty members also want your presentation. They said it is very extensive and they would like to go through it again. Although I can share with them the YouTube link. I think that would be okay, sir, or would you like to share the...
I'll forward it to you, ma'am. You can share with all the participants.
So thankful to you, sir. So humble. And also, finally, I would like to thank Lekha ma'am, who was the moderator for the day. Well, everybody, before I wind up from this wonderful panel of illustrious intellectuals who were there, who garnered the entire panel today with their illustrious deliberations on the topic of Transgender Persons Act 2019 and Rules 2020 in the context of the National Council. One word is at the core of all of us, whether me or you or any other person, be it a transgender person, and that word is identity. We look up for identity. I also look up for identity because I have traveled across the country and different parts of the world, and I still think, which place do I belong to? Which is my place of belonging? Where should I go? Where is my nest? Where should I go? How do I identify myself? So not just me, everybody looks for identity, which is very, very pivotal to one's being. An identity is equivalent to divinity. That is how we define. And when an individual's identity is destroyed, he or she feels like death, because no identity means I do not exist. And that tantamounts to, if the intrinsic dignity is even curbed, so that cumulatively brings a devastation of the values of which we are made. So with this webinar series, we are trying to re-endorse the values of privacy, choice of freedom of speech and the expressions, and to realize that I am me, you are you, he is he, she is she. So I am what I am, accept me as I am. Thank you everybody for making this webinar series a complete success. In the words of our Honorable Founder President, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, goodbye and God bless everybody. See you all in the next webinar on the same platform of Amity University. Bye-bye everybody, take care.